Good morning, everyone. I'm going to maybe give it another 30 seconds to let folks come in, and then we'll kick off our December virtual brew. All right. We're really glad that everyone's here with us today. For those of you who made it to our annual users group event at the beginning of November, we definitely appreciate you, and it was great catching up with everyone. We want to welcome everyone to Virtual Brew. Today, we're going to be talking about some of our integrated data through our open API system with our Bullhorn web system, and get right into the content. I'm going to pass this over to Cole Finney, who's our product manager for the remote monitoring section. Cole, over to you.
All right. Thank you for handing it over, Justin. So before I kind of get going, I did want to share a poll. I went ahead and shared a poll in the chat here. So kind of what we'll be talking about today, we're going to be talking a lot about the Bullhorn Open API. So if you're familiar with the Bullhorn remote monitoring space and other remote monitors in the corrosion world, you probably have encountered something along the lines of heard about an API or heard about these ways to securely transfer data outside of their web systems and portals. So I went ahead and dropped a poll in the chat because I just kind of want to get a pulse on the audience, see how familiar y'all are with APIs and in general, just so while we're going through the content, I can kind of tailor a little bit, and also feel free to put all the questions you may have in the chat too as we go through the presentation. I'm always willing to answer them as we go, or then get to the end. If you have more questions, go ahead and throw them in. So just kind of looking on the screen here, we'll be talking a little bit about what are APIs in general, and an overview of the Bullhorn Open API, some capabilities tied to the Bullhorn Open API, and what you can actually do with the API, what is unlocked for you using Bullhorn remote monitors and this new API, as well as how to access this API, what credentials you need, what type of account you need, as well as a bit of a demo of some of the capabilities that can be implemented by you and your teams with the API as well. So kind of going over APIs in general. So what is an API? So when you get into, for those of you that I see in the poll here, there's a mixture of some folks that are somewhat familiar with APIs. I got a few saying, what in the world is this acronym you're saying? So in the nutshell, an API, it's called an application programming interface, but what it is it's really kind of a superhighway for accessing data from one place to another place. And so kind of as an analogy, when you think of a restaurant, you have your kitchen. So in a restaurant, you've got a whole bunch of different things that all work together to help provide you, kind of the user, some good food in this case. So you've got your kitchen. So in this case, you've got a kitchen. That's where the food is usually all is made. That's where your cooks are. That's where the ingredients are. So thinking in the sense of data transfer, this is where your core systems are. This is where your servers are. This is where your data may live in a warehouse or databases. Then to get that data get that food and data from your kitchen to the people that are going to be eating the food or using the food or using the data, you've got a waiter or a waitress. And so think of the API as your waiter or waitress. The API is transferring your order of what do I want to see. In this case, what type of data do I want to show in a dashboard? What do I want to integrate with a work order system, my risk model, my internal, or even just another internal database? And how am I going to do that? And what do I want to do? So then you tell your API or your waiter what you want, goes to the back to the system, and then pulls all that data in the way that you want it, or in this case, in a nicely made meal. In real world application, this is kind of what it looks like. So you have, taking that same analogy we had, you've got your kitchen on the left, which is Bullhorn Web. So Bullhorn Web is where all this data lives. So whenever you have remote monitors, you have volts, amps, using AC monitors, you'll have AC current density. In Bullhorn Web today on the website, we host 18 months of data. This also includes all of the cold storage data. So in Bullhorn Web on the left, that's where all of your data, database materials, all that information lives. And through the Open API, that Open API is creating kind of a superhighway. For those of you that are into Star Wars or into science fiction, think of it like hyperspace, but for data transfer. So then once you get that Open API programmed, connected to your external systems, such as Power BI or Maximo, or any other third-party dashboards you may be using. In this case, I'm also going to be showing it hooked up to a demo application. And for those of you using PCS, this is also tied into PCS 2.5. But once all that integration is done, your data can now go through that superhighway, like I said, that hyperspace lane, all the way from Bullhorn Web into your third-party system, PCS, or any other tool that you want to hook up to this data and make sure that it's streaming in real time. So you heard me talk about PCS. So I know that in last year, actually around this time last year, we released PCS version 2.5. So one of the biggest things that was in that release was integrating Bullhorn Web data into PCS without having to use the original bridge. So how we did that was through a true API integration. And this was the first integration in an API format between Bullhorn Web and PCS. This is a one-time setup, and it's one integration per PCS database, but you can integrate multiple client IDs from Bullhorn Web through that API into your PCS database. But what was valuable about this is you had a lot more of a somewhat real-time transfer or scheduled transfer of data from Bullhorn Web into PCS that was more automatic and less prone to having some errors that you may not capture, because unlike the bridge or unlike some of these other scheduling tools, an API is almost instantaneous. And every time you made a change in Bullhorn Web, it would update that API and transfer into PCS on your scheduled call time. Unlike the bridge, where you might have had to make a change in each individual bridge before you made a transfer. And if you didn't make that change, or someone made a change without telling you and it failed, you might not have been aware. So this was really the first time that we integrated this API, and this has been out for over a year, and we have a lot of users, and I'd be interested to hear in the chat if you're using PCS 2.5 today. We have a lot of users out there using this new feature and using this new version of PCS. And I would be curious to hear your experience, because we have seen over the last year, it's been a proven, reliable API integration. So now that we've seen it's been proven and works very reliably in PCS, we've expanded this now to be available for all third-party systems. And now, unlike just using PCS, you can now access Bullhorn RMU data in any platform at any time. And this is available now, and I'll show you how to get to this in Bullhorn Web later in the presentation too. But we are very excited to say that this was announced and released a few weeks ago at our AI World Users Group event. So this is readily available and accessible right now in Bullhorn Web, which is very exciting. So you've heard me explain what is an API, what does this API do? And it sounds very high level and very much of, oh, that's great, but what does that actually mean for me? So now I kind of want to go into some actual capabilities that you can manage or actually implement with your API. So when we add in the ability to through programming and through mapping endpoints and extra fields, the sky is the limit when it comes to the amount of integration capabilities that you have now with your Bullhorn RMU data. So the ability to expand your integration into any tool is massively improved. I know a very common one that a lot of our users today are using are third-party dashboards. So for those of you that have multiple RMU vendors and you're wanting to see all the data in one place, you're managing multiple systems and building a compliance dashboard and corrosion management dashboard in Power BI or other visualization tools, using this API, you can now import all that data from Bullhorn Web into a visual space that it can take in other forms of data to help tell another full story of your entire corrosion program, as well as maintenance systems. So for those of you using Maximo, SAP, or other tools, we have a lot of users that will be taking their voltage measurements. So say I get a low voltage measurement, or I get an alarm packet or an alarm measurement. Now with using this integration, I can basically go into Maximo or go into my work order system and maintenance system. Also go ahead and schedule a work order. Say, hey, go check out this asset. There's something going on out there. And this is all done through programming. So if you're not super technically savvy, I mean, I won't ever say that I am either. I have to use some help when setting up an API or setting up a tool like this. But having some assistance from your internal IT teams or other systems, you can now integrate data into any of your internal systems. Another one that comes up a lot is GIS integration. So for those of you using GIS tools, I know in visualizing a lot of your data spatially in that sense, being able to integrate your remote monitoring data into your infrastructure mapping or into your other systems in GIS is another valuable way to expand the look at your CP system and your whole compliance system alongside the data coming in from PCS and other tools that you may be using and putting into GIS. Also looking at risk models. So this has been something that is very important. So remote monitors are a very key tool when it comes to analyzing and troubleshooting your CP system, your pipeline infrastructure as a whole, and determining where you might have an area that needs to be addressed early, especially with regulation changes looking into proactive maintenance and proactive identification of areas to maintain. This is very valuable. And being able to add additional insights into your risk model from the remote monitors that are capturing measurements once a week, some capturing every 15 minutes if they're on the AC side, this helps you make better decisions on where do I need to make proactive changes and proactive maintenance. And this is a value that this is something that was not really possible before with Bullhorn Web. So now it's an easy, instantaneous way to access all of that data in your risk model. But that's not the only thing you can do. There really are endless possibilities. So I've talked about several different integrations, but being able to connect cross platforms and not just external systems. I've talked a lot about external databases, external risk models. There's also internal systems, so internal databases. So we use, if you're using SQL or using other types of internal tools that manage your entire compliance system, this is an easy way to connect with your internal systems like work order management tools or databases, other systems that you may be using internally to help maintain all of your data and keep a clean look at your compliance system. You can now do that using the data that you're capturing every day and every week from your remote monitors. And for those of you that have dabbled into the machine learning side of the world, the amount of data being captured by remote monitors is a fantastic tool and way to gather more insights from the data. If you have entered the world of machine learning, utilizing risk models that also use predictive analysis in some way, being able to integrate all of the vast pool of data that your remote monitors are capturing provides your risk model and your machine learning models with an ample amount of data to help make you make better decisions and as well as lead into just better decisions across the board. And also, you've heard me say a lot about automated data handling. The API, this API allows you to access that data at any place at any time. This data can be placed not just in Bullhorn Web, not just into your SQL database or your dashboard. You can put it anywhere now. Any platform that can consume an API can now receive Bullhorn RMU data, as well as real time. So what is really valuable about an API, unlike a scheduled job service or a scheduled export from Bullhorn Web today, using an API, it is always connected. And through programming and through integrations with whatever tools you're putting this into or plugging this API into, you'll be able to get your data in real time, unlike having a scheduled service or a scheduled export to an Excel table that we might do today in the extracts in Bullhorn Web, as an example. This allows you to automate your reporting. You don't have to wake up and push a button to get the data into your internal report that you're building. You can automate that report. And what's beautiful about an API as well, there's ample documentation when you go into Bullhorn Web and you have the right credentials to be able to see how to implement this. An API is incredibly configurable. We basically have given you the tools to configure this data transfer, to tailor it exactly to how your systems work and how your SOPs work. All right, William, I see that's a good question. Could you mention something about the benefits of APIs and risk-based integration for corrosion control? That's a really good question. So whenever you're looking at using APIs for risk-based integration, APIs, like I was talking about earlier, with that real-time automated integration and access to data from any system, in this case, all of your remote monitors, being able to utilize APIs in your risk-based system can get you more real-time data. That real-time remote monitoring data, real-time compliance data, real-time troubleshooting data that's being run by your teams is so valuable for a risk-based system. If you have more real-time access to not just what's going on right now, but all of the legacy history of an asset that you've had a remote monitor at, if you've had a remote monitor there for 5 years, as an example, you now have 5 years of data that is outside of not your compliance data, but your true every week or every day. What is this asset looking like? That can help tell you a story and tell your risk model a story that you couldn't do before, at least in the way of without a lot of manual interaction and manual data pulling. So having that real-time integration makes that a whole lot, helps make your team make a lot better decisions.
And William, maybe just to expand on that just a little bit, a lot of risk systems have probabilistic risk modeling. So if you maintain a certain operational profile at a certain time, you will have a potential event. And Bullhorn data and the things that are coming in are talking about the health of a pipeline system. So you can use that in probabilistic risk modeling. And the risk models in general in order to try to build predictive analytics. And a lot of customers use this data for that side. Hope that makes a little bit of sense.
Awesome. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, we'll definitely talk with you after the session here, William. And so we'd love to talk about that. Awesome. Then kind of getting into more to additional items tied to this API. I mean, this is giving you've heard me say additional value. You've heard me say that probably, I don't know how many times. If someone can tell me how many times in the chat, I'll give you a mug for Virtual Brew. But this API is an easy one-way data integration platform. It's very secure. When we made this, we utilized the Open API spec. So for those of you that are technical or not technical, if you tell your IT teams that we utilize the Open API spec and we're SOC 2 accredited and encrypted all the way end to end at rest and transferring not at rest, your IT team's eyes are going to open up and they're going to get really excited when they hear all of that. Because we took security and easy integration very seriously with this API. We wanted to make sure that the data that you want out of Bullhorn Web can go into any system easily and securely. And we have now been able to provide that to you with you see on that end, meaningful endpoints. Endpoints are basically what is the data. So you have readings, what are the units, This can allow you to link multiple accounts together, and it's very secure and an easy way to integrate data one way. So when I say one way, that means we go from Bullhorn Web to your externals to the other system. It's a one-way transfer of data. So when you're accessing the API, it's very simple. So when you go into Bullhorn Web, I've got a screenshot on the right here. If all of the requirements that you have to have a Bullhorn account. And for your Bullhorn account, you have to have a client admin access. So we have various security levels of access in Bullhorn Web. To be able to access the API and access the credentials to create new keys and integrate this data into other systems, you have to be a client admin. We wanted to make sure that the right people are looking at the right way to integrate, especially because this is thinking of your API keys, which I'll show you in a minute. That's basically, think of that as your username and password. So if you gave your username and password to everybody, or everybody that you wanted to be able to access something, that wouldn't be very fun for you, and your IT team would not be very happy with you either. So we wanted to make sure that this right people are being able to access this data at any time, or to be able to access these credentials. Now, once you go into Bullhorn Web, you'll be seeing, like I said over here, you'll see this button. When you click the admin button on the tab up top, you'll see a button that says Bullhorn API. When you click that button, it takes you to a screen to set up your API credentials. So you'll see I've got an example here, one that we made in May. You'll click a button called Add New Credential, and that will allow you to create a new, basically, username and password for accessing your API. And from there, you now have access to a way to pull the data from your API. So I've talked about setting up the API. I've talked about how it works, what it does. Now we're going to actually see it in action. So here I'm going to be utilizing a demo app that we have made at American Innovations, mainly just to help be a visual aid for displaying what the capabilities that you have as a user with the API for Bullhorn Web. This also helps technical folks and non-technical folks, maybe like myself, get more hands-on with how to use these endpoints, what does the data actually look like, and how can I then use this to tailor it to what I want in my actual production database or production dashboard. And how we built it, we utilized, you might have mentioned me say earlier, we use the Open API spec. So if you go on, there are, for those of you that are technical, there are platforms out there like GitHub and other tools that have these generators for utilizing the Open API spec. For those of you that aren't technical like me, this is awesome, because since we use this open spec, there's a lot of tools out there in the world that are open source, very secure, that will allow you to basically put an API credential in, and then you can build a dashboard, build a tool, and interpret that API without having to be a developer. So just to show that, I'm now going to hop over. I'm going to start sharing my screen now and hop on over to Bullhorn Web and to show our demo dashboard for you guys. And this demo dashboard is available on GitHub. And if you are interested to be integrating or looking into this, we will share the link with you after the presentation. So now that hopefully everyone can see my screen, and we're now looking at Bullhorn Web. So I'm in a client I'm in our field test client. So in this client, you'll see I've got all of my Bullhorn remote monitors in here. I will go to admin and click Bullhorn API. So like I talked about earlier, I have client admin access to this account. So then I can now go in and create a credential for the Bullhorn Open API. And what I'm going to do is this is a login screen for our API demo app. I have a credential already created here, so I'm going to go ahead and just use this one. So you'll have a client ID and a client secret. Think of this as your username and password. You'll click copy and paste into your client ID and paste your client secret in here too. We'll go ahead and sign in. So now that I've signed in, my demo dashboard's kind of getting all built up here. But now this is a visualized tool that will allow you to look at the unit data and different data streams that come in from the API. And I'm gonna, for the sake of time, I see we have 4 minutes, so I'm gonna be quick on this. But what I'm gonna do is go to data points. So data points and readings. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and skip to the readings tab. So readings, this is looking at the readings endpoint. So whenever you are capturing measurements on your remote monitors, this API is capturing this, or this readings dashboard screen is giving you a look at all the different types of records that were captured. And we gave you filters such as you can filter out, I only want to see records that had alarms. I only want to see specific types of facilities. I want to see my rectifiers, my AC monitors, or my test stations. And in this dashboard, we've added basically a bunch of different ways to visualize the data captured and streamed through the API so that you kind of can jog your brain and see what you like, what you don't like, what you want to show. So in this activity dashboard, this is a look at the month of November and showed me kind of a heat map. Which days did I receive the most amount of measurements? When was I, if I knew when I was expecting to get measurements, I would see Friday right here, the 15th of November, I only got 8 readings. When the 2 weeks later, I got 32. Maybe I had a pipeline outage on my power went out. Maybe I had something go on. I might want to look more in depth at the data there, as well as a location heat map as far as where my units are, where the readings came from. This is kind of valuable for those of you using Power BI or other visual dashboards to show where all of the units I have may be. And another one that's really important and really nice to show is here on the actual readings and measurements. So you see here, I have several AC monitors and several rectifier monitors on this dashboard. I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit to make it a little easier to see for those of you. And we're able to map out this AC monitor as an example. Our AC amps, our coupon pipe to soil, AC current density, DC current density, AC volts, various different types of measurements that are captured across all the different types of remote monitors and lay out on a graph from November to December 1st. This is a look at my current density and all of my measurements across various remote monitors. This is incredibly valuable, not just to see point in time, where are my measurements and how is my pipeline system operating, but also helping you see trends and show where are things going. Where am I having spikes of measurements? Where am I having spikes in voltage, spikes in current? What do I need to address and make changes to? As well as various different data packet streams, such as being able to see when units were changed. So for those of you that need to know change logs, or you want to know when units were modified, in this case, I actually don't have any that were changed because in this account, we haven't really changed any settings. But this is showing you no one went in and changed your units. No one went in and changed GPS coordinates. No one went in and changed permissions. And this is really important for some of those that are using like your ITs or system admins, et cetera, that are keeping track of this, or even corrosion managers. All right. So that's a quick look at the Bullhorn, the dashboard that we're talking about. And like I said, the API is available now. So when you go back into Bullhorn Web, you have those credentials, you'll be able to find a redoc page and Swagger documentation to be able to implement the API. For those of you that aren't technical, don't worry. I don't really read these either, but if you send this to your IT teams, they'll be able to translate and understand exactly what that means, and they'll be able to help get you guys squared away. I know we're right at time, but I'd like to say thanks again, everybody, for coming to this virtual brew. Does anyone have any additional questions that they would like to put in the chat or questions for us? If we don't want to ask them here, we can always also reach out to you after the webinar.
Just as a quick follow-up, this did go live. This was one of the features and capabilities we released during our user group conference. So if there's any people in the room, and I know Carlos, you'd asked some questions here about the integration and the process. please always remember to reach out to our support. You have a direct call-in number, and you also have our support ticketing system at support@aiworldwide.com. And they can definitely start to work with you to help you work at this integration side. We have a lot of content that we're going to be releasing here, videos, things like that, in order to walk you through some of these integration steps. And we'll make sure the links are sent out through distribution channels. So please don't ever hesitate to ask us to support you. And we'll make sure that we can, our job is to get your data where it needs to be seamlessly. And this is another step in the right direction as we start to move to be API centric. So if there's no questions, I want to wish everyone a great holiday season. This is the last virtual brew for 25, so it's a great big hurrah for us. And thank you, Cole, for the time today and the quick, hot topic of APIs. And we wish to see you guys in 2026 in our January virtual brew. So thanks, everyone, and hope you have a great closeout to the rest of the season. So thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day and holiday season.